Parshas Lecha, right? Did you listen in Shul for Lecha? You know it?
No.
Okay. It says, Vayomar Hashem el Avraham. Hashem said to Avraham. Now it's interesting. By Noach, there's a whole introduction. Who's Noach? We don't know Noach. Oh, Noach, Ish, Tzadik, Tamim Haya B'Darotzav. He's a wonderful man. He's a good man. And Hashem loves him. There's an introduction. By Avraham, there's no introduction. All of a sudden, we're introduced. Hashem says to Avram, go. And we only learn about Avraham from the Torah, from the events, but we have no introduction. It doesn't tell us at 3 he recognized Hashem, or at 48. It doesn't tell us that he was thrown into the furnace, he destroyed all his father's idols. All those stories, which are midrashim, missing. It's not in the Torah. So one of the answers that they give is that the Jewish people come from Avraham. If it would have started that Avraham is a tzaddik, the expectation would be that Hashem only loved Am Yisrael if they're tzaddikim. It would be called a love that is dependent on conditions. Tluya b'davar. Hashem's love is unconditional. So it says, Avraham doesn't tell us who he is, doesn't tell us anything about him. And it says he's going to be the father of the Jewish people, and with no introduction, Hashem is going to love the Jewish people also. So that's a very, very important lesson. Then Hashem says to Avram, go. So Avram says, where am I going? Hashem says, I'll tell you. By not saying exactly where he's going, Eretz Canaan, every step that Avram took, he got a mitzvah. Because Hashem said, go. So every step he went, got a mitzvah. It's an interesting debate. Let's say you have a sukkah half a mile away and a sukkah a mile away. Is there any difference which sukkah you go to? The answer is no.
No?
No. You know why? The mitzvah is to eat in the sukkah, not to go to the sukkah.
But shul is...
Shul is different.
Yeah.
The mitzvah is to go to shul. So if you go half a mile, you go to a mile, the mile gets more reward. Because it's the mitzvah to go to the shul, because that's where Hashem is. They say that by the Akedah, it says, Hashem said to Avraham, go, and I'll tell you where to go. Har HaMoriah. Why did he tell him? Because it's like a shul. So every step was also a mitzvah. So it wasn't as if he denied him the mitzvah. Every step was a mitzvah. Avraham was the same way, that every step was a mitzvah. Because the Akedah was where Hashem's presence was. But otherwise, the answer is not. Good evening. It's interesting that if you add up the letters, Avraham, there's 5 letters. Yitzchak is 4, is 9. Yaakov is 4, makes 13. Hi. So Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov has 13 letters. Sarah has 3 letters. Rivka 4 makes 7. Rachel makes 3 is 10. And Leah makes 3 is 13. So the amount of letters in Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov is 13. The amount of letters in Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah is 13. Together is 26, is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So it's interesting that the Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, if you count up the letters, it equals 26. Very, very important.
The together or separate? Each separate one?
Each separate letter. Avraham is 5 letters, you add Yitzchak is 4 letters, Yaakov is 4 letters, is 13.
And you everything is together 26?
26.
Oh,
Yud Kei
very
Vav Kei.
nice.
It says that Hashem changed Sarai's name to Sarah. The Gemara says that Sarai couldn't have any children. One of the reasons they say is that Sarai, with a yud at the end, is a boy's name. And when you changed her name to Sarah with a hey at the end, in Hebrew, when you put a hey at the end of a word, it makes it feminine. Okay? So, there are many, many people who know the importance of names. There are many Mekubalim, Kabbalists, who if a person doesn't have children, sometimes they look at the name and sometimes they say the name doesn't fit. It's unusual. That Sarai was like a boy's name, and she couldn't have children. Changed it to Sarah, she had children. Someone gave a child recently the name Shira. Shira is a common Ashkenazi name. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says it's not a Hebrew name. Shira means song. It's not a name.
Shira or Shiva?
Shira.
Shira.
Shin Yud Resh Hey.
Resh?
Shira means to sing. It's a song.
Because I know that Shiva is the name of the god of the Indian.
Right. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about giving names.
My nephew's wife recently gave birth, and they put name Shira
Shira.
in Israel.
Right. So it's a common name, and yet Reb Chaim Kanievsky is of the opinion that Shira is not a real name. So the question is Shira a real name or not? He says it's not a real name. It's unusual. The name Shira. A lot of people give the name Shira. People make up names. They have someone in their family named Danielle. They had a baby girl, so they call her Daniela.
Yeah, Daniela. Yeah.
They have they want to name what?
Daniela. Yeah.
Yeah, Gavriel. Oh, but I got a girl, so my father's name was Gavriel. So what do they name her? Gabriella.
Gabriela.
Uh-huh.
No, is there such a name? The
My-
Malach is Gavriel. There's
my
no
name
Malach
is-
Gabriella.
My name of the wife, Shira. But we call her Shirin.
Shirin. Okay, that's different. Shirin is a Russian name.
Different?
That's not a Hebrew name. But I'm just giving you an example. You give a person a name Gabriella, it's a made-up name.
Uh-huh.
The Malach's name was Gabriel. Michael. How many people we call Michaela? We don't do that. Raphaela. No, we don't do that. Gabriela.
Daniela.
What? Daniela. These are made-up names. So some people are very against these names. Some people are not. You can call anybody what you want. But I'll give you an example. In the Gemara, they have Rabbi Yishmael. So everybody asks the question, how do you name somebody Yishmael? That means Yishmael was Avraham's son from Hagar. Now, would you call someone Esav? No. Would you call someone Nimrod? I know someone named Nimrod. Yeah. So I asked him, he's an Israeli, why his name is
They have
Nimrod?
Nimrod?
Nimrod.
They have Nimrod.
So I asked him why. So he told me that he called his son, the father told me he called his son Nimrod because he was on a mission. And the code name for that mission, it was a very dangerous mission, was Nimrod. And since he survived the mission, he called his son Nimrod in honor of that mission. Nothing to do with Nimrod in the pasuk. Okay, but it's an unusual name. We wouldn't call people names of Rishaim. So why do we call someone Yishmael? So there's three answers that are given. One answer is that Yishmael did teshuvah at the end of his life. So because he did teshuvah, his name is now okay. Another answer is that who gave Yishmael his name? Hashem. So when you call someone Yishmael, you're not calling him after him. It's a name Hashem gave, so it's a holy name. It's Hashem gave the name.
Rabbi Ishmael.
Rabbi Ishmael.
And this name has the name of the god.
It has the name of God, right.
El,
Also,
El.
they say Yishmael means Hashem will listen to you. So the name is a nice name. So you're allowed to call someone with a nice name, even though there are people who are not nice that have the name, right? But it's interesting. We just don't pick names, we just don't choose names. The names defined in the Shema. So here comes Sarah, and she doesn't have children because she has a boy's name. There are certain names that fit for boys and girls. Yonah. There are boys called Yonah, there are girls called Yonah. Simcha. There are boys called Simcha, there are girls called Simcha. There are certain names that are
Unique.
different, uninames, that they apply to boys and girls equally. I had a cousin who was married for many, many years, had no children. They got divorced. He got married, she got married, they both had children. It was just together, they had no children, just didn't work. They both got divorced, they both had children. How to explain it, I don't know. Okay, so here's Avraham and Sarah, and there's Lot. How is Lot related to Sarah? Brother and sister. So they're all going from the land of Haran, Ur Kasdim Haran. The Torah said last week Terach died, but Terach didn't die yet. Terach is going to live. He's going to see Yaakov and Esau. He's going to live long. Terach is 205 years old. How old is Avraham when he travels to Israel? This time he's 75. How old is Sarah?
65.
65. How old is Avraham when he marries Hagar?
90?
No, close.
85.
85. We learn a halacha from here. That if you're married for 10 years and you don't have children, you can divorce your wife and get married. But only if you're living in Israel. So even though Avraham had been married to Sarah already 40 years or 50 years, didn't count. The 10 years counted only when he got to Israel.
Oh, when he
So when he turned 85, he married Hagar. Now it's interesting, we're going to talk about this, that the Hashem takes him out and looks at the stars. And Avraham says, I see in the mazolot that my wife can't have children and I can't have children. So Hashem says, don't look at the mazolot. Ain't mazal Israel. Don't care. Okay. And then Avraham goes ahead and marries Hagar. A year later, he has a baby. Yesterday, he saw he couldn't have children. All of a sudden, now he's having children. So we have to talk about that a little bit, how all that happened. But at any rate, Avraham is 75, Sarah is 65. They're traveling to Israel. And what greets them there? They're traveling all over. And they come to a city, Shechem. Now, it's interesting. Shechem was named after Shechem ben Hamor, who wasn't even born yet. So they say that Avraham, this is proof Avraham had Nevuah. He calls the city already by the name Shechem, even though Shechem wasn't even born yet. He wasn't going to be born till the days of Yaakov Avinu. And he davened there for Yaakov and his children that if they have a battle, they should be protected.
Avraham give the name of this land?
Avraham in the Torah calls them the names that they would be called. It says he traveled out Dan. Dan, there was no Dan. Dan was one of Yaakov's children. And he didn't get that Nachal until after they came out of Mitzrayim. But it's in the Torah, it's in this week's Parsha, Dan. So we have many, many hints how Avraham Avinu had insight. He knew all the nation and all the cities and all the towns and all the names that would one day be called, even though they weren't called that right now. But anyway, he comes and there's a famine, there's hunger, there's no food. So what does Avraham do? He decides to go down to Mitzrayim. So the Ramban says, V'da, you should know, ki Avraham Avinu chot chet gadol. He made a very big sin by going down to Egypt. Why? He put his wife in danger. What should he have done? He's a believer, right? He should have stayed and said, Hashem will give me food. If Hashem wants me to have food, I'll have food. If Hashem doesn't want me to have food, going down to Egypt is not going to make a difference. Some say that he went down to Egypt because he wanted to, pave the road. One day, all the Jewish people will go down to Egypt. And the same way that I'm going down, I'm going to leave Egypt. B'nechush gadol, with wealth, and so will the Jewish people. And when he was down in Egypt, Paro gave to Sarah a city as a gift. What was the name of that city? Goshen, which eventually the Jewish people. So Avraham says, I'm not going because I don't believe in Hashem. I believe in Hashem. I'm going because I am, when we have a disk, in the olden days you had a disk. Before you could use the disk in the computer, you had to format it. There was a process called formatting. Avraham was trying to establish a pattern in history. I'm going to go down to Mitzrayim because the Jews are going to go down to Mitzrayim. I'm going to leave Mitzrayim, so the Jews should leave Mitzrayim. That's the sign of a father. A father, paves the road for his children. But the Ramban says he made a big mistake. He had no business going down to Egypt, and he had no business putting his wife in danger. Paro got, Sarah was put in a lot of danger. Now, she was 65 years old. Maybe in those days that was not considered old. She was having children when she was 90 years old, so maybe it wasn't considered old. But at any rate, the Ramban is not happy with Avraham's choices. So we have 10 tests. We all assume Avraham passed every test. The Ramban says no, some of the tests he failed. But he still was tested. They say that David HaMelech once asked Hashem, Why does it say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov?
Mine and two.
I want Elokei David. Hashem says they were tested, you weren't tested. So he says, test me. How hard could the test be?
Failed.
You failed the test. With Bathsheba, you failed the test. Yet, in every Shmona Esrei, his name is found. Es Tzemach David. David's name is found. So Hashem says, you failed, but I'm going to stick your name anyway. And we make the bracha, Baruch Hashem Mogen Avraham, and we have something called the Mogen David. Right? People wear a Mogen David on it. So here, the guy failed, and yet his name is in every Shmona Esrei. It tells you something. It's not all about passing. Sometimes making the effort counts. Even if you fail, doesn't mean you lost. David failed, but he won. So it's interesting. They bring down over here from the Machzor of Rosh Hashanah that Avraham Avinu had his Brit Milah on Yom HaKippurim, on Yom Kippur. But we know that he had it on Pesach, because when the angels came, he was making matzos for them, ugos matzos. So maybe Hashem told them about the Brit Milah on Yom Kippur, and he was discussing it with his friends, and he didn't do it until 6 months later. He waited until Pesach. Different opinions exactly what happened and when. But, Avraham for sure.
Which age he was?
How old was he?
Yes.
99.
David.
No.
How old was David when what?
Oh,
When he got tested?
no. Brit was on Avraham, yes?
Avraham,
Yes.
99.
99.
And Ishmael was 13.
Yes.
And how old was Yitzchak when he had a Brit? 8 days.
8 days.
How old was Yaakov when he had a Brit?
Feet.
No, Yaakov was born already with a Brit.
No?
How old was Esav when he had a Brit?
Esav also was not.
No, Esav didn't have a Brit.
Yeah.
Because he was so red, they were afraid that his blood wasn't, and eventually he never...
Isaac was also.
Moshe also
Right.
wasn't Brit.
Correct. But of the Avos, the only one that had a Brit at 8 days old was Yitzchak. Everybody else didn't have. Okay, and we're going to learn about that next week.
Yaakov, he was born with ready.
Yes.
Ready.
Right.
Как Moshe
Not
Rabbeinu.
allowed to.
So there was nothing to cut, we still draw blood, but that's what we do today, but in those days maybe they didn't do it. He didn't have a Brit Milah in the conventional sense. It's interesting, it says, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech l'chol ha'aretz asher ha'echo, that I'll show you. They say that when Avraham was in Chutz la'aretz, Hashem spoke to him, but he never had a vision, because there's no nevuah in Chutz la'aretz. Asher ha'echo, when you come to Israel, then you'll see things. So Hashem hinted to him that right now, all you do is you hear voices, but you can't see anything. When you get to Israel, you'll be able to see certain things that come with Nevuah. That it was a voice without a vision. But when he comes to Eretz Yisrael, he'll have a vision.
It was radio, but then TV.
Right. And it says that once he had his first Nevuah with a vision, that's when he brought a korban. In Chutz la'aretz, he didn't bring any korbanot. In Chutz la'aretz, he brought no korbanot. When he came to Israel, he brought sacrifices, which is interesting. And yet, when he gave a su'udah for Yitzchak at his Brit, he made a big party, he invited everybody, he brought no korbanot.
No Kamora?
No.
Why?
Yeah, actually,
Well, that's a good question. And then the Satan says to Hashem, look at your good servant Avraham. He made a big party, he invited everybody. Everybody had a full meal. And what did he feed you? Nothing. To which Hashem says, nothing. If I ask him to bring his son, he'll do it. This was a discussion with the Satan and Hashem. But the question remains, why Avraham didn't bring a korban at the Brit Milah of Yitzchak? We'll talk about that next week. But it's interesting that, it's interesting. The Satan causes trouble everywhere you go. Always. Then it says, Va'avorcha mevorechecha. Those who bless you will be blessed. So it says, the Gemara says, Mikan, Gemara in Brachos, Mi shenotin lo koshel bracha levorech. A person is at a su'udah, and the Balabayit says, do me a favor, do Birkat HaMazon. And you say, no, I'll pass. No, thank you. Mekatrim Yomov, his days are shortened. That means you're not supposed to refuse. Now, of course, if you refuse because you think there's someone greater than you, that's different. But if you're the rabbi and he gives you the kos for Birkat HaMazon and you don't do it, he says, the Torah says, those who you bless will be blessed, and therefore, if you choose not to bless, it's a curse. So that's what's brought down.
You mean when they're sitting like a few people, and Rabbi they told him to do the Birkat Hamazon.
He has to do it.
Well, he can do anyway, but not. Not like.
But what do you do with the kos? When you give him the cup and say, do Birkat HaMazon,
And he said, no, I'm do like this, so it doesn't count. I mean,
Correct.
counts, but not.
it's not. And the same thing goes to Kohanim. When it comes time to do Birkat Kohanim, if they don't do it, not only they lose, that means there's a curse that's involved as well. It says, Vayikach Avram Mesora Ishto, Avram took his wife and they came to Israel. So the Zohar writes, Vayikach, how did he take her? He spoke to her. Very interesting Zohar. The Zohar says, Avram didn't go to Sarah and say, wife, we're moving to Israel. Even though the halacha says a man can force his wife to move to Israel. And if she doesn't want to move, he can divorce her. But the Zohar says Avraham didn't do that to Sarah. He sat down with Sarah and he spoke to her. He says, here we have no children. Hashem is promising us children in Israel. He explained to her everything. And only when she agreed, did they leave. So the Zohar is very, very interesting. He says that Avraham Avinu took the time
A good lesson for other people.
to explain to Sarah everything that's happening here and what could happen there and why the move is in their best interest. He didn't simply say to her, it's my way or the highway. He didn't do that. The Zohar says, Mahu vayikach sheimshicha b'devorim tovim. He drew her with nice words. He explained what was happening. So that's an important lesson when it comes to all these things, the shalom bayit and everything else.
Yes.
It's very, very important to explain, what is involved and how it's involved. It says, Vayava Avram be'eretz ad makom Shechem. He went all over the land. That means Avraham Avinu felt it's important to walk everywhere, and every place that he saw b'nevuah, this battle or that battle, he davened on behalf of the Jewish people. So he brings that very, very interesting. And the Panech Raza, they all bring down how he went from place to place and he did things. Now, when Avraham left Egypt, Paro gave him many gifts. Did Avraham take the gifts? Yes. He took it all.
Didn't take a lot of money.
By Sodom,
Yeah.
he didn't take it. So why was Paro's gifts better than Sodom's gifts? So one of the answers is very interesting. When Avraham was going down to Egypt, he didn't have a lot of money. So he stayed in a bunch of different places, but he couldn't pay them. He either owed them money or he paid them half price. So now he's in Egypt and he has all this debt. He owes the Holiday Inn and Motel 6 and the Hilton. He owes money. So Paro offers him gifts. So the lesson here is a very interesting lesson. When you owe people money and someone offers you a gift, take it. Because to be a tzaddik and say, no, I don't want your gifts, when you owe people money, you're being a tzaddik on their loss.
Yes.
Don't do it. By Sodom, he had money. He didn't need their money. So he had the right to say, no, thank you. But when you're broke and someone offers you a job, what should you do?
Take it.
Take the job and take care of your family. That means, don't say to the guy, no, I'm looking for a $100,000 a year job. You're only offering me $80,000 a year. I'm going to pass. I've had people do that. Don't pass. Take the $80,000 a year job and pay your
Be
bills.
smart, yeah. Be
Yeah.
smart.
Be smart. It's common sense. That means we say that, don't be frum on Yenin's cheshbon. That means don't be the righteous guy when someone else is paying the price for it. So therefore, Avraham, and it says that when Avraham went back, he went back to the same places he stayed the first time, and he paid his bill, he paid his account. The Chassam Sofer says that when Avraham was coming down, people were saying to him, "You believe in God? Yes. You're a religious man? Yes. So if you're such a religious man and you believe in God, and God is so wonderful, how come you're so poor?" It's almost as if, there can't be a God because a man like you, God should treat better than he's treating. So when Avraham came from Mitzrayim, when he was very wealthy, he went back to the exact same places. And he wanted to show everybody, see what a religious man can do? Look what a religious man can accomplish. So he wanted to show people that Hashem wasn't punishing him. It's not always proof, but it's very, very interesting. They say that when the Lot would let the sheep graze in other people's fields, so Avraham got very upset. And people would come to Avraham and say, "Why did you let your sheep graze in my field?" And Avraham would say, "No, I didn't. It wasn't me." He said, "Sure, I told you. I saw you." So the Gemara says that Lot and Avraham looked alike.
Yes.
So it was a big problem. It was a big problem because people were accusing Avraham of things that he didn't do. And he couldn't understand why maybe I wasn't there. I was someplace else. I didn't do that. But Lot looked a lot like him. They saw Lot. So they accused Avraham. So Avraham said to Lot, "We have to separate. It's not enough, do right. We just have to go apart." So it's so interesting how they separated each from each other. It says that Vayipordu ish me'al ochiv Avraham, the last letter spells shalom. That by separating, it brought peace. That means you would think families should always stay together. But sometimes families, when they're together, fight a lot. And sometimes the best solution is to put some distance. I know that the Bukharians don't put distance between children and in-laws and parents.
No, now they put.
They put a little bit.
Now the children do.
Big distance.
Children make
Big
decisions.
distance.
Now kids go and want to stay a long
Now
way.
kids make decisions.
Children make decisions. Okay, but the Ashkenazim have done that already for a long time, to put some distance. It's good to be close, but not too close. It's good to be 20-minute drive.
Farther the closer this.
Right.
Further the closer.
Whatever it is that what it is. Okay, so now let's understand a few things over here. So we said earlier that Avraham and Sarah could not have children. There's all these different stories and Gemaras why the Imahot could not have children. This way they davened and they were able to have children after davening. The truth is, Rivka only had children once. Yaakov and Esau, twins, that's it. She never had more than one set of children. She was pregnant one time. Rivka was only pregnant one time. Sarah was only pregnant one time. Leah was pregnant 7-8 times, and Rachel was pregnant twice, but otherwise they were not. Like today, we have families have 6, 7, 8 children. I know families that have 13, 14 children. It wasn't in those days. Not by the imahos. They didn't have. Avraham with Hagar had a whole bunch of children. But not with the imahos. The mothers did not have children. So they really did not have a lot of children. What happened? So now, let's understand this. At 85 years old, Hashem and Avram, they have all these visions. Don't worry, you're going to have a child. You're going to have from Sarah. It wasn't happening. So he married Hagar. Sarah says, marry Hagar. But if Avram was told he could not have children, and he wasn't going to have children until after he had Brit Milah, how did Hagar become pregnant? That's the question people ask. Clearly Avram could have children. So what was going on? So the Meforshim bring down the Malvum and different people, different Pirushim talk all different type of answers, but they say something very interesting. When Hashem said to Avram, "You're going to have a child with Sarah," he was happy. It says he laughed inside, he smiled, he was happy. Hashem said, "You're happy with the news?" so you're going to have a child now. His mazel changed right away. When he told it to Sarah, what did Sarah say?
She will say,
How could I be? I'm so old, this and that. Sarah, you can't be? Her status didn't change. Not till later.
Another 10 years.
Another 10 years. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. When Elisha was a guest by this lady, the Shunamis, so he wanted to give her a gift. So he says to his servant Gehazi, what can I buy the Shunamite woman that she would appreciate? And Gehazi says, she has no children. He says, really? Calls her in, says, next year when I come back to visit, you'll be holding a baby. What were the first words out of her mouth?
Why are you doing it?
Yeah, don't fool me, don't trick me, don't give me false hope. She had a baby, the baby died. What should have been the first words out of her mouth? Thank you, amen. That means when a person gives a bracha and you make fun of that bracha, the bracha becomes even like a curse. The baby died. Now, Elisha brought the baby back to life. The baby was Chavakuk. There's different opinions who the baby was. But he couldn't understand why the baby died. You know, he gave her a bracha. She would have a baby. Why would the baby die? Sarah laughed. She had a baby, Yitzchak. How did she die? Because she heard Yitzchak died. That means her death came because she thought Yitzchak had died by the Akedah. It didn't. All because she laughed. That means we have to be so careful. You know, we have a saying, Al tiftach peh la satan. Don't open up your mouth to the satan. That's, you know, you've got to think about the future. There's a famous story. I told you this. I don't know if I told you this particular one. I told you about the community wanted rain, right? So they all davened for rain. No rain came. You know, in Israel especially, they daven a lot for rain. So finally, the rabbis of the community decided that if all the shuls together would daven for rain, not 50 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, Hashem would listen. But they didn't have a shul big enough, so they went out into the field. 1,000 people saying Tehillim for rain. So one of the rabbis gets up there and says, do you believe Hashem is going to send the rain? And the people says, we believe. He says, I don't hear you. We believe. Do you believe? We believe. He says, no, you don't believe. No, we believe. He says, you believe? Yeah. Okay, how many of you brought umbrellas? Nobody. Nobody brought an umbrella, you don't believe. Okay? It's proof you don't believe. Because if you believed all of us getting together was going to bring the rain, you would have brought your raincoat, you would have brought an umbrella, you would have, but you don't believe. You say you believe, but you don't believe. I remember there was once this Kabbalist, there was a father saying that he has an older girl, she's 27, 28 years old, she's not married. So he says, I'll give you a bracha that she should get married this year. But for that bracha to happen, you have to do something. So he says, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to go buy a wedding suit, buy a new hat, speak to the florist to arrange the flowers, start looking at wedding gowns. But she's not even engaged yet. He says, if you take my blessing and attach it to an action, it will come true.
Nice.
It's a fascinating thing. He says, I gave you a bracha, she's going to get married this year. Do you believe me? I believe you. So go shopping. Get ready. Buy a new hat. This is for the wedding. Don't wear it on Shabbos. I'm buying it. I'm going to buy a new shirt. I'm going to buy a new suit. For what? For the wedding. What wedding? My daughter's wedding. She's not even engaged. But she will be. How do you know? Because I got a bracha. That means when you take the bracha and you attach it to an action, you change teva to nes. You take the mundane and you make it miraculous. It's a fascinating, it is. It makes a lot of sense. It's just a fascinating idea. Avraham, Hashem says to Avraham, you're going to have children. He says, great. Sarah and I don't have children. I'm going to marry Hagar. What are you marrying Hagar for? To have children. What are you talking about? Hashem said I'm going to have children. Yeah, but that's after you brit milah. Hashem said I'm going to have children. All of a sudden, he marries Hagar and he has a child. He took an action. And when you take an action, you change what happens, and it becomes a totally different thing. I found that to be very, very fascinating. You know, the power that goes with that. Okay, let's see, there's, maybe we'll wrap up with this. I have a story to tell you. Listen to this story. It's an interesting story. It's brought down in the Torah Talmud. From 1993 to 2003, it's a 10-year period, the chief rabbi of Israel was Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau. Rabbi Lau was the chief rabbi of Israel. And as a chief rabbi, he met with many important people, presidents of the United States, the Queen of England. He met with both popes, Fidel Castro, King Hussein. He met with a lot of different people. One of the people that he was invited to meet with, and he met with, was the president of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak. He met with Mubarak in Cairo. And the meeting went off as planned, and they made suggestions how to make the Israeli-Egyptian peace stronger, better. They spoke. At the end of the meeting, Mubarak said to the rabbi, I have one request for you. While you're in Cairo, I want you to meet with the Grand Mufti of Egypt, Dr. Mohammed Tantawi. He is the president of Cairo's university and the head cleric of the Muslim religion. Now, Rabbi Lau didn't want to insult President Mubarak, so he said he would take care of it, and the meeting took place in the office of the president of the university, in his office. And the conversation lasted about an hour and a half, and it was a very nice conversation. Then Rabbi Lau said to the Grand Mufti that he has to excuse himself because there's one synagogue in Cairo, the Sharei Shamayim, and they had this morning only 9 people, so he has to be part of the minyan, he has to be make number 10. But he invited Dr. Tantani to come to Jerusalem, and we can continue our conversation. The Grand Mufti said, I'll only come to Israel if my passport is stamped by the seal of the Palestinian state. And Rabbi Lau was taken aback. We just spoke for an hour and a half. When I came down to Egypt, my passport was stamped by the seal of the state of Egypt, right? The country of Egypt. I didn't make anything about that. I didn't turn it out to be a Hebrew stamp. You're coming to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is part of Israel. The government is the state of Israel. Your passport will be stamped Israel. What difference does it make, the stamp in your passport? He says, if it doesn't have the stamp of Palestine, I'm not coming. So, Rabbi Lau said to him, I assume you're an intelligent person, and you've studied, and you did your homework like I have. Let me ask you a question, he says. How many times is Jerusalem, because it's so dear to you, mentioned in the Quran? He doesn't answer. He says in the Torah, Tanakh, Jerusalem is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible 821 times. Now you may not know exactly how many are in the Quran, so I'll make it easy for you. 50 times? 30 times? 20 times? I notice you're not answering me. Can I tell you why you're not answering me? Because I know the answer. The answer is 0. Jerusalem is not mentioned even once in the Quran. If something is important, it's mentioned a lot of times, 821 times. When something is not important, you don't mention it at all. Enjoy your day, he said, and he walked out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Not bad. Not bad.
So smart.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
He's still alive?
So
Sure, Rabbi Lau.
What's his name?
What?
What's the rabbi name?
Rabbi Lau.
Lau,
L.A.
Oh, yeah,
L-A-Y.
yeah, I know, I heard.
Rabbi Lau. He's
L-A-Y.
L-A-U.
Oh, L-A-U.
L.A.U. Lau.
Minority.
He's a Holocaust
Everybody else
survivor.
does.
Rabbi Lau is a Holocaust
Wow,
survivor.
how old is he? 90?
No, in the Holocaust, he was a kid. So 60, 70, 80, he's probably in his 80s. Have a good night.
Good night.
So fast.
Stay warm. See that? It's already 9:25.